After Paul Thomas Anderson did Magnolia, he wanted to do a much smaller scale film with a much smaller cast. I can only just imagine what people were thinking at the time when he announced his next film, Punch Drunk Love. So, what's your next film going to be? It's going to be a romantic comedy with Adam Sandler. People must have thought he was crazy. But this isn't the usual goofball Adam Sandler movie that you would expect from him. It's kind of hard to explain. It's not the typical Adam Sandler role, but again, it would be hard to think of anyone else playing this part. The role that I speak of is Barry Egan, an owner of a small business that markets toilet plungers and other items. The beginning of the film is really quite bizarre, but I do think it does serve a purpose. Actually, come to think of it, a lot of the film is rather bizarre. First, he witnesses a car crash, which he really doesn't show much of a reaction towards. He sees a small piano being dropped off at the end of the street, and he meets a woman called Lena Leonard, who is played by Emily Watson, who asks him to look after her car. This quick meeting is explained later on in the film. Barry then takes the piano from the street into his warehouse and he begins to play it. I actually really love this part. I think it's a great part, as when he starts playing, the darkened room illuminates. He is expressing his joy of this coincidental meeting and an actual human connection through this piano. Later on, he starts to collect low-cost pudding, which, due to some loophole, gives him free frequent flyer miles for the rest of his life. Again, a weird thing to do, but this is later paid off. Barry then gets into some serious trouble when he calls a phone sex line. He doesn't call for a sexual reason though, he just feels lonely and he wants to talk to someone. But the woman on the other end threatens him to give her money over the course of the film, which eventually causes her boss, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, to send 4 brothers to get his money by any means necessary. Barry not only has to deal with this, but he has 7 sisters who torture him by abusing him verbally and bringing up embarrassing memories that he would just rather forget. All of these pressures within his life cause him to freak out on occasion, and that famous Adam Sandler rage and anger is unleashed. This is when we see the return of Lena Leonard. They begin to have a romantic relationship, and just being with her causes all these problems and pressures in his life seem to disappear. I think that Barry would quite happily abandon his entire life to be with her. But when these problems from his past return, and Lena Leonard's safety is at stake, he has to take control of his life again. But this time he has newfound strength, sparked by his love for this woman. Along the way, there's really funny moments in this film and really human moments as well. In my opinion, this is Adam Sandler's greatest performance. You know, they say that comedians can really do great dramatic performances because they're so used to the importance of timing. And I think that is quite true in this case. The only other kind of examples I can think of off the top of my head are Robin Williams' role as Cy in 1 Hour Photo. And again, Adam Sandler in Reign Over Me, a film of loss and repression. Emily Watson is really quite amazing as Lena Leonard. She is believable, caring, and she complements Sandler's character very well. It was also great to see some PTA regulars like Louis Guzman and Philip Seymour Hoffman, whose character is really similar to Barry Egan in a number of different ways, most notably his rage. I also really like some of the smaller roles, like Marilyn Rajkub, who was the standout sister of the 7 sisters. She really gets under his skin. You would probably say this film is quite minimalist, but the more you watch it, the more you notice tiny little details planted in the background, which shows a lot of care and attention to detail went into it. Because of the kind of weird nature, this film is also quite open for interpretation. I heard someone say that there's a strong connection to Superman, which I'd admit I could not see at first, but now I can't help but notice it. Barry's blue suit, Lena Leonard, a reference to Lois Lane. His office is his fortress of solitude. His sisters are normally shown in green. They are his kryptonite. His strength to smash unbreakable plungers. He calls Philip Seymour Hoffman's character Mattress Man at one point, which is a very kind of comic booky name. And the kind of most obvious one, the frequent flyer miles, allowing him to fly anywhere. Lastly, I want to talk about the music. There are some really great tracks in there which really complements the scenes, like the song He Needs Me for a romantic scene, and the country song Lonely Blue Boy for the showdown with Philip Seymour Hoffman's character. But I really love the background music by John Bryan. It's just really weird experimental music, and it fits the film extremely well. It is restless, tense, awkward. It's just really reflective of his character. So in conclusion, a really amazing film that everyone should see, because I think that everybody has a little bit of Barry Egan in them. So the film Next Up is an absolute massive stylistic change for Anderson. Well, that's all from me, so thanks for listening.